we have to talk. You've been waiting for it. There are deep dive discussion. We should have like a... We're going to talk about...
CNN breaking news.
Divorce of Sony and Disney. Well, it's not really official yet, but it kind of is. So our favorite character, Spider-Man, may or may not be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I know if you're watching this show, you have done your research, you're looking up, you're freaking out.
Yeah.
You see that Kevin Feige and Tom Holland make comments that they're not doing this anymore. So we're going to break down this whole thing for you guys. Where I think we should start is going to be, what was the original deal?
Yeah.
Right? So we know that Sony and Marvel, Sony reached out to Marvel for help to create the Spider-Man movies. Sony, Spider-Man is their biggest IP. So originally, Kevin Feige was going to come and produce 2 movies. Mm-hmm. They were going to get 5% of the gross profits. Mm-hmm. They're not going to pay anything for the movie to make the movie.
Yeah, Sony paid for the production expenses
and marketing,
yeah. And talent.
Sony did not get any of the merchandising rights,
nope.
Which is a lot on the back end. They gave that all to Marvel, but Marvel gave them a cash output, I think annually, $165 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, after the 2 movies, also the place where the company started when they did this deal, Marvel just had Guardians of the Galaxy, mm-hmm. but they also had Thor, Dark World.
Yeah, it was right before production of Captain America: Civil War started,
yes.
Which is why Peter Parker's in that movie.
Correct. And it was also they weren't sure how far superheroes would go. Well, obviously, we all know it's going, and it's not stopping. Sony,
stop, won't stop.
After the Amazing Spider-Man 2 fiasco, realized, all right, they're not in a good place, and they had this public image of, destroying Spider-Man.
Yep. So
now we fast forward to today, right?
Yeah, like the timeline is basically that. We had the movies, like Rob said, that's how it was with production, and the rights were split more towards Sony's side mm-hmm. because they had the legal rights.
Yeah, of course.
Now, really quick, you're already thinking, yeah, Sony, you already have everything, you dicks. 5% of a movie that makes $1 billion is a lot of money, but not in movie sense. Mm-hmm. Also, toy rights is everything in this world when you have IP. Mm-hmm. Merchandising and toy rights control everything. So, as an example, when George Lucas did Star Wars, when he renegotiated his deal, he went to 20th Century Fox and he said, I'm still going to have creator control of these movies, but I will sell you the rights to make these sequels, produce it through 20th Century Fox. Which back then was ridiculous because no one made sequels back then in the 70s. No one had sequels, let alone toy rights. George went out by himself and got the toy rights. Lucas made more money, like a billionfold, over just the toys than he ever would have made on the movies. The merchandising and toys is where every major IP makes their nut.
They make
Disney included. So when George sold Lucasfilm to Disney, that's why he got $4 billion. Because those toy rights, he had all these contracts with these toy rights where he made most of the money off of the sales. Mm-hmm. The movies, he's like, whatever, they're already done. You're going to be rewatched. If you buy them, you have it for life. You don't have to pay it anyway. But syndication rights, who cares? Toys, think about it. Lego, Keter, all these different companies, Hasbro, socks. I'm wearing Star Wars socks right now. You know what I mean? Socks, T-shirts.
I thought they were Pokemon.
No, they're Yodas. Socks, T-shirts, clothes, folders, pencils, backpacks, everything. Star Wars, anything. Pictures on the wall. That's the merchandising, which Disney had. So Disney is not just making the 5% off of Spider-Man. They're making all that merchandising stuff off of all those Hasbro toys, all those masks, everything.
Concerning the movies.
Yes.
If it's not, if it doesn't have Far From Home or
Homecoming,
yeah,
they already Civil War, that. Avengers,
they already have that because they own that side of it.
Exactly.
So the new deal or the proposed deal that Sony refused was Marvel came up to them, after their big success at Endgame and after Sony's big success, they want more of the money, they want more of the profit, which is understandable. I think 5% is too low for the amount that Kevin Feige did. So
I agree.
I understand that he wants more money.
I agree.
They proposed to do a 50-50 split.
Marvel proposed that.
Marvel proposes. So they would pay 50% of the next movie to be made if they got 50% of the gross domestic profit. Not counting the merchandising. And some reports say 30, some reports say 50.
Sony counter-offered and
30,
said, we're
right?
not doing 50-50. We could go up to 35.
I've heard different versions of this.
30, 35.
But still, I even think 35.
But this is, again, we're not going to know the full deal. This is just what me and Rob have countlessly read,
correct,
looked up, and researched.
I have a theory with this. I just want to say the
let's get through the timeline.
Okay. So they want 50%. So 50% of $1 billion is $500 million when they're only putting up, let's say, 86. They're taking a lot more of that market share from Sony that Sony doesn't necessarily need. Now, and then the head of Sony was Tony. I forget his last name.
I do too, but he's the person who made the decisions.
Correct.
Is the head of the production of Sony, not the president of Sony.
Yes, the head of production.
Yes.
So he said that, we don't need Marvel. We have made Venom, which made a lot of money, not critically successful, but made almost $1 billion. They made Into the Spider-Verse, which won an Emmy. Oscar. And then, the other things they have in the Spider-Man, in their history, Spider-Man 1 and 2, arguably still one of the best with Sam Raimi.
Well, also, they're also doing Spider-Man spin-off TV series now with Sony.
Yes.
Sony just bought Insomniac Games, who made
Spider-Man
very good Spider-Man video game.
Not 4. Spider-Man video game.
Spider-Man video game, the new one, which also Marvel's spinning off and doing comics about. So Spider-Man's back in a big way. But this is what kind of grows into the issues, right? Number one, this is where money is the root of all evil. That's been said biblically, non-biblically. This is the evil of money, because you gave us 2 Spider-Man movies, 3 Avengers movies. Technically, he's in 5 minutes of each of those Avengers movies, arguably instead of Infinity War, where he's in it in the beginning. With Tony Stark gone, Spider-Man is the face of the Marvel Universe. Cinematically, he was the face of the comic Marvel Universe since the 60s. If you buy a comic book from 1963, 64 to about 1990, every book has a little square box on the cover with Spider-Man's head. Because he's the face of the Marvel Universe.
I think this is something... The fact that we know this, I don't think is a good thing. I think this was brought into light. Personally, I believe Disney, leaked this or whatever, got this out. I think they're negotiating in public. I believe personally that Disney has done this to get the fans riled up. To be like, oh, Sony won't do this. They won't get more money.
To put pressure on them.
Put pressure on them. The reason I say this, when you think about it, I don't blame Sony for turning down the deal. They're losing a lot of money. Now, people are going to be like, oh, you know what? If it wasn't for Kevin Feige, they wouldn't make a good Spider-Man movie. I don't think that's true. I think in the other movies, they may have had their hiccups, but they got the essence of Peter Parker.
Can I give you the kind of the view of each company based on the business side of things?
Sure, go ahead.
So, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I just didn't want to forget it. So,
I have it here.
Oh, that's cool. If you're Sony and you're Marvel, you're sitting down. You're Marvel. You're saying we want more money. 5% is not enough for it's our character.
I get that
to begin with. So here it is, right? If I'm Marvel, number one, Kevin Feige is arguably one of the biggest, best, and most ingenious movie producers, writers, creative talent we have in this world right now. No one's been able, not even George Lucas himself has made a universe this big. In his mind, yes, but actually getting it done into production. So yes, I think if you take Feige out of that equation, it's going to suffer regardless. I think it just is, because it's like saying, I don't want LeBron James in the game. I'm going to put a backup in there.
Yeah, but I don't think that. I think all the groundwork that they put up, even if they were to remove Kevin and they make a Spider-Man 3, which they're saying that they
are going to. 3 and 4 is already.
that they're going to make, I don't think the movie's going to suffer as much as people are writing and complaining about.
I don't either, but if I'm Marvel,
go ahead.
I'm saying, okay, here's the deal. I want this to be a 50-50 split. Disney, we get half. And we're keeping the merchandising, but we're getting half for these reasons, right? One, Spider-Man is a Marvel character. It's owned by Disney. Whether you have the rights or not, it's a Marvel character. That's just what we write on paper. Our comics have it on there. Nothing says Sony on anything. Mm-hmm. Number two, you can do this third and fourth Spider-Man movie, and I'm sure they'll be fine. But without Kevin Feige, you wouldn't have gotten to this point. Without Kevin Feige's direction and creative team and ideas, you don't get the reaction to Homecoming. You don't get the $1 billion Far From Home. You don't get a movie that after Endgame arguably was as good, if not one of the best solo character movies Marvel put out, right after they did a movie that combined 10 to 11 years of movies. So you're talking, go ahead, 3 and 4, good luck, because we got you to this point and you're not showing us any love or thanks for it. That's Marvel's side of it.
What's the counter? I know you're going to go on the Sony's thing, but with Kevin Feige, putting his direction of what to do in Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, still, Sony had people who wrote this, right?
100%.
They had people direct this. This isn't all just Marvel's creative, and they pretty much, Sony just put it out.
Yeah, no, Sony produced it. Yeah,
produced it. They wrote it. They had this, these ideas that we liked.
Yeah. They had to sign the contracts, and that's what I'm getting to too. So on Sony's side of this, you're saying, dude, you guys have merchandising. You're the ones who sold this character to us 20 years ago, and we have, regardless of if you like Amazing Spider-Man or not, or the third Spider-Man movie, we have fulfilled our contract in order to keep this character.
Yes.
We made $1 billion off of Venom. We made crazy money and won awards for Into the Spider-Verse.
Which is still probably one of the best, if not the best Spider-Man movie.
100%. And we have done this with Into the Spider-Verse. We revolutionized not only the Peter Parker character 3 times, but we've introduced Miles in a way no one thought we could do. And on our end, you're getting merchandising rights, which we see none of, which is more than anything we'll make on a movie. Also, we're Sony. Our biggest movie ever was Skyfall, the James Bond movie,
which is no longer with him.
Which now
it's to MGM.
MGM originally had it.
No, they have it again.
They have it again.
They have distribution, I think, to. It's 2 companies. One company has distribution internationally, and one has it here. Sony has nothing to do with it. That's fine.
But Sony made the most money ever off of that movie, off of Skyfall.
For them, yeah.
Now, Far From Home is their highest grossing movie of all time.
That's the jewel.
Sony isn't just a movie company. Sony is in video games, obviously the PlayStation. Sony has TV production. Sony has electronics. Sony as a company is not doing well as much as people think. Arguably their best distribution is PlayStation and the games that they have for that. PS4 is what is saving that company.
Yeah.
In other aspects, Sony TVs, Sony, software, MP3s, all the other electronic stuff, computers, that doesn't do well. As much as PlayStation, and every once in a while they throw it.
Yeah.
So for Sony saying hey, not only did we make $1 billion movie on this contract, now you want to take half of that GDP for future movies that may not make this. May not have Far From Home. It may make $500 million. It may make, a couple $100 million. That is money that they need for that company to put back into their company to keep it thriving against guys like Disney and Amazon and, Warner Brothers.
Just Disney alone. And who owns 70% of the movie industry.
Exactly. So it's not cut and clear is what I'm saying. Each side has their reasoning, and each side has valid points and invalid points.
I think Disney is the villain here.
I don't think there is a villain.
I think if you had to pick one, I think Disney. Let me rephrase. Yeah. I think Disney's being the bully right now. I think this whole situation was done by Disney. The talking out loud to put this pressure on. And by the way, the social media outrage is ridiculous. You have the hashtag Save Sony, which hashtag Save Spider-Man. I get that one.
Yeah, ban Sony.
The hashtag ban Sony, Spider-Man when they realize how much they do. They have Facebook events to storm Sony's office like they have with Area 51.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll see you there. I'm not going.
He's not going.
No, yeah.
Unless you want to be killed immediately.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. But no, but they have all these things. The memes have been great, though. The memes have been hysterical.
Oh, yeah, the memes are great, where they had one the
That'll
other
make
day.
me buy Wii U too.
Well, my favorite one's the one with Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, where he's like, since it's a dumbass idea, I will not allow it.
Yeah.
He's talking to the Council and Avengers.
There's so many.
So many memes, but like...
And then we have, more recently with the social media response, we have Kevin Feige and Tom Holland both making statements saying that this is done. You know, Tom Holland saying, I'm going to do Spider-Man 3, but I don't think I'm not going to be in the MCU anymore. Kevin Feige was like, we knew this was finite and this is what's happening. This doesn't mean the deal is done. These are just... Kevin is not in the discussion at all. He is not debating anything. He is like, he works for the company. He doesn't get to make this decision.
And he makes a lot of money.
And Tom Holland as well. So this doesn't mean it's done yet, because this is a lose-lose-lose.
Yes.
It's a loss for Marvel because you're losing your biggest character.
And at the worst possible time, by the way.
Yes.
And you're losing the face of the Marvel Universe when you just killed Tony Stark. Ugh.
Loss for Sony, because they don't have access to the MCU anymore.
Which means they're also not going to get a piece if Spider-Man's like in an Avengers movie. That
Correct.
piece is gone. If Spider-Man's in a
Sony
team-up movie.
Also, Sony never got any part of the money when Spider-Man was in the MCU movies.
So like Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, nothing.
They got nothing.
That's rough too, man. I get it. That's rough.
I get it.
That's rough. But here's the thing. So like, yes, I agree with you. I think Disney is definitely the bully because it's the bigger brother, right? We have all the power, the money behind us, and it's diabolically smart, right? We're going to release this to the masses, and every idiot who has an internet account is going to be able to say their opinion.
And because everybody's going to be like, Sony already has a poor perception of the Spider-Man movies before this stuff.
Yep.
They're going to be like, without Marvel, we're nothing.
Yep.
And then, everybody is... Disney has some crazy diehard fans that they're just going to keep going with this.
Totally. And unfortunately, the stupidity of man is hurting this as well. But here's the other part. We are partially to blame as well as comic fans. Because...
I'm not blaming you. Don't blame me.
We're all partially to blame. We all should... Everyone has to take the equal blame if it's a part of it. If Sony can make the argument about their billion-dollar franchises... The fact that Venom made $1 billion on its own is a problem.
Why?
Because Venom is not a good movie. Venom is not...
great moments.
That's true. But Venom is not a $1 billion grossing movie. The way that other $1 billion grossing movies deserve $1 billion. I would argue Into the Spider-Verse deserves to be $1 billion movie. If it wasn't animated, it would be.
Oh, yeah.
Venom is not a great movie, but we see it because of the character, because it's a comic book movie, because we are fans.
It also did.
That's why we see it.
Gangbusters overseas.
It did, which is also questionably ridiculous. So, like, the fact that you were making movies, like, we had this discussion back when Suicide Squad came out. Made crazy money based on the characters that it's comic books. Harley Quinn, all these major characters.
The promotioning.
Not based on if it's a really good movie or not. Honestly, that hurt Disney too, because we went out and saw Venom, which Sony sat there and was like, hey, it's $1 billion movie. And Disney's probably like, are you kidding me? That movie isn't... It's $1 billion... It's $1 billion movie.
At the end of the day,
it's $1 billion
all
movie.
About the money.
Yep.
It's all about the numbers.
They could sit there and have a 5-year-old argument, right? Oh, that movie sucks. It's $1 billion movie. Oh, I'm sorry. What is it? It's $1 billion movie. You know what I mean?
Scoreboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all that matters is the dollar sign. So yes, we are partially to blame, but obviously this is something that isn't over. People think it's done deal.
It's not done yet.
At the moment, it's just stopped negotiating, which also makes sense why we didn't hear anything about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
In San Diego Comic-Con about announcements. We didn't hear anything about D23. You know, you can't... As fans, it sucks, right? As fans, this is tough, especially the way Far From Home ended.
They could also... Here's a little tinfoil hat thing.
Ooh.
They could also be doing this to get people more riled up about Spider-Man.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I'm just saying.
I mean, that would be the biggest dick move.
We would never know. We would never know.
We would know.
We would never know. If they did this, we would never know.
I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, it would be the biggest dick move. I think it's too convoluted, and it also makes sense on each side of why.
Question for you.
You know what I mean? I totally understand each side. I totally agree that Disney is the big bully in this, pushing that ahead.
Question. Ready? Does Disney try to buy Spider-Man? If so, how much?
I think Disney will talk about buying out the Spider-Man contract, and I think Sony might want that secretly. I think Sony would rather get a lump sum of crazy money and be like, take your IP back. We're gonna restore our company with this money.
How much do you think they would buy it for? Or how much would they sell it for?
The Fox deal went down for what? It was like 475 million or something like that, or 75 billion or something like that. It was like 75 billion, wasn't it?
No. Billion?
Wasn't it billion? It was crazy.
I don't remember the Fox numbers. I remember they bought Lucasfilm for $5 billion.
4 billion was Lucas.
Sorry, just focus on that.
But like the Fox deal had
Fox,
a bunch
they
of
bought
things.
the company.
Yeah, they bought the whole company. So like Lucasfilm was bought for 4 billion. 2 billion?
5.
No way.
Sony's not selling it for 5. Because they've had, theoretically, think of it like this. I see no way. I understand that. As of right now, this franchise, they have made $3 billion. Marvel's help, yes or no? They made it 2 with the Spider-Man movies. They've made it with the Venom movie. And not counting the universe that they're trying to set up. And the fact that this is the only crown jewel that they have. I don't think they could sell it less than 4 to 5.
I could see that, but my argument is...
It's just a character.
One character, as big as it is, comparing it to the biggest franchise IP of all time in Star Wars, and getting whole control over not only just Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader, like every character and every toy model of a stormtrooper and
that.
Millennium Falcon, to one guy in a suit with webs. I get it. It's the biggest character, and it's the toughest one to get back. If they really wanted to, Sony would definitely dig them over and try to do 4 to 5.
And it's also, but here's the thing. Like you said, Sony's in the power position. They have, that's like if Star Wars, as we stand right now, they need to buy to complete their set.
Yeah.
I have the right to Luke Skywalker. And the Skywalker connected people. You have everybody else in the Star Wars universe.
You have Jar Jar.
you have Jar Jar. You have robots. You have everybody else. But I have Anakin. I have Luke. I have Leia.
You have all the Jedi and all the cool people.
I have all the people who are related to Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
You're gonna pay me any amount that I want to finish your thing. And also, like you said, that is their biggest character. Marvel's biggest character. They want that back desperately, and also they need it back. And quote unquote need it. They don't need it back. They could fuck everybody over, but they quote unquote need it back because the way they set up the universe. So they have a double stacked against them, so they have to pay the higher amount.
I agree with that, and
see what I'm saying?
I agree with that. That makes sense. I also think there's no way like Disney's going to buy Sony, or they can at this point.
I don't think they could afford to buy Sony.
I think they can afford it. I just don't think they will, and I also think it's too much. It becomes a monopoly if Sony's not a monopoly already.
The government would have to stop it.
They would have to.
I'm surprised the government didn't stop a lot of the Fox deal, but
yeah. But I mean, they did stop some of it.
Some of it, yeah.
They stopped the sports aspect of it because so it would have been Disney against themselves, like competing against themselves, which is impossible, and controlling the entire market. But for this deal alone, if this were to happen, I think. At the moment, the egos have to cool down. The snarkiness has to cool down. Once each side calms down, they get started again. It's like getting into an argument with your spouse. Sometimes you just need to walk out of the room, calm down, and talk about it the next day, or talk about it later.
You hear that? I'm just saying.
But like,
I didn't even say it.
But no, that's just what sometimes you just need to calm down and talk about it later once cooler heads. I don't think at all this is over. I think people are really overreacting. I think it is a shock. It's one of those shock things to hear immediately, but they have been doing this for a while. Like they have been there have been like people like, listen, this deal is about to be done.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
Out of the box question before we wrap up. Because of this tension, does Universal knock on Marvel's door, but like, you want Hulk back? You want something there in our back? Do they make a plea? They're like, hey, do you want to buy these out real quick?
I don't.
I don't. They're trying to be like, hey, yeah?
No, I don't, because I think Marvel hasn't used those characters to the point where it's relevant for them to do that. I think they would rather bide their time and see what they do with the Hulk and see what they do with those characters than just be like, hey, you could buy these back for this, and that's chump change compared to what Sony's going to give you. That's not what these big companies want to do. They want it like, hey, I'm going to wait till my character becomes a premium and you have no choice because you need it for whatever
like what they're doing with
Spider-Man. Like what they're doing with Spider-Man. I don't think they're big enough yet or important enough yet, especially compared to the face of the Marvel franchise.
Fair enough.
Again, like, Far From Home set up Peter Parker as the face of this universe.
Yeah.
Not only like the next Tony Stark, but like the Spider-Man we see in comic books where he is the face of the Marvel universe. Like, he is, you know, the next generation Avenger. He is, you know, dealing with stuff that we left on cliffhangers, like his identity being blown and J. Jonah Jameson and all this stuff. I can't see them not trying to figure this out again.
Yeah, they're going to.
They have to, because, I mean, they don't have to, but they should, because you are, us as fans, like, this is what we want to see. This is what we love. And, like, that deal was awesome. Like, these are two major companies that worked out a deal to make everyone happy, not only the companies, but the fans included. And Far From Home is arguably one of the best, if not the best, Spider-Man movie. So it'd be a real shame if they don't. I will cry deeply for my favorite. She's my favorite character in Marvel. And I love Tom Holland. I love his take on Spider-Man.
I do too. Fantastic.
And I love what they've done, and they made it feel like almost like a family film without a family in it.
I think that is the perfect note to end this episode on. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of the Jersey Comic Crew. We talked so much news today. D23, Sony, and Marvel debate. Let us know down in the comments below, what was your favorite thing from the D23 announcements. Let us know what you think of the Sony-Disney debate. Are we correct? Do we think Disney is a bully? Maybe we're wrong and Sony's just being greedy. Let us know down in the comments below. And keep the conversation going on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. As always, I'm Ron Moran.
And I'm Chris Heller.
And we'll see you next time.
JerseyComicCrew.podbean.com.